Where do we go next? Well, we've had the influencer, the mental health awareness campaigner. We've had the global CEO of a media company. Now we have something a bit special for you again. We touched on music, we've touched on film, but actually we've got the CMO from the Grammys, guys. The CMO from the Grammys, Greene. Please come to the stage.
Good morning. What I want to talk about today is we built a connection this year between Lady Gaga, Intel, and the Grammy Awards. And it was connected through media of various forms. And I want to kind of deconstruct that and hopefully tell you a little bit of a story that's at least somewhat insightful or at the very least interesting. So as I get started, I think I like this slide because it really represents, I think, the essence of what we try to achieve. Sometimes the thing that looks the easiest and the simplest and frankly the most intuitive is the little sliver of ice that sticks up out of the water. But ultimately, to make it look easy and simple, that's the strategy that went into it, the massive amount of effort and labor to make it come out and look seamless. So I get a call about a year ago from a good friend of mine who had just landed at Intel, and he said, "Evan, I have a problem." He said, "The problem is that we are just about to go through a massive rebrand of the entire company. For decades, Intel has been known as the computer chip maker, and we are going to emerge from being the chip maker from Intel Inside to creating great experiences on the outside, across music, across entertainment, across sports, across lifestyle." And the reason he called me is because these are all the things that the Grammy brand represents globally. But he said, "I don't really know what to do with it. I don't know how to harness it." So we got together and we pitched a bunch of ideas and we kicked around a lot of different concepts and a lot of different things, and none of them were really right. And ultimately, we had to come up with that nucleus of an idea that could be serviced around media, around the world. So everything from traditional to social, creating partnerships, expanding it across music sites, blogs and fan sites, etc. How do we create that engagement? Well, the linchpin was using technology in a way that had never been used before and aligning with an artist who's known for being innovative, extraordinarily talented, and somebody who's cutting edge, where we could make a really loud statement relative to technology. So I just want to go over really quickly what our objectives are. Traditionally, we want to increase our relevance and our resonance, prestige and integrity. We want to find a way to personalize our brand and humanize our brand, and ultimately reinforce our voice as someone who's contemporary and future-looking. The other two presentations today I thought were really insightful, and I think a couple of things resonated with me, and that is that consumers today and fans have never been more involved, more engaged, more distrustful, and more jaded. And ultimately, you have to figure out who you are, you have to figure out what your message is, and you have to speak in an authentic tone. Ultimately, authenticity leads to trust, and trust becomes the cornerstone of community. And the universal truth that we've discovered over many years is that people are really looking for two things. They're looking for discovery, and they're looking to be part of a community. If you can enable the idea of discovery, you enhance shareability. Shareability leads to building a dominant community. I'm not going to read all these, but the reason that Intel called is because the Grammys have a significant global cultural impact. We're 185 countries. We have averaged 27 to 30 million viewers domestically per year. And I won't go through everything, but I will tell you that our social ecosystem is of over 11 million engaged friends, fans, and followers. So what did we do? We had to figure out what Intel's needs were, what their objectives were, and then we had to figure out how to service that across the world. The linchpin, as I said, was Lady Gaga. And the interesting thing for us about Gaga is that about 6 years ago, we worked with her, and that represented the tipping point for us from a social media standpoint and a consumer engagement standpoint, and I'll explain that. I shared earlier that ultimately discovery leads to shareability and leads to community. 6 years ago, we created a campaign that for the first time was created 100% out of social media elements that had been uploaded and approved and given to us by fans. We put a call out there. We said, send us your YouTube videos, at the time, your Flickr photos, your tweets, and just trust us. So they did. We created a campaign, and this doesn't happen very often, but we completed our spot with Gaga 2 days before CBS, who's our domestic broadcaster, was able to put it on air. So at the time, we said, well, what do we do with it? Let's put it online. Something extraordinary happened when we did that. People started to recognize themselves in a piece of Grammy advertising aligned with their favorite artist. When they started to do that, they started to tweet about it, post about it, send people to it. And I'll show you that video now. So when it was time to build a bridge between technology, music, entertainment, excitement, Gaga seemed like a really natural choice. So what was the idea? What was the idea that galvanized Intel and became a significant piece of their entire global rebranding strategy? Well, we started deconstructing the Grammys and started asking ourselves, what about this show, what about this property resonates around the world? And it's those unbelievable moments that happen on our stage that don't happen anywhere else. We put things on the Grammy stage that haven't even been contemplated by anyone else, and we call those Grammy moments. And we thought, what if we can work with Intel, create technology that's never been created before, utilize it in a way that's never been used before, and use that to take what will be an extraordinary career-defining performance and elevate it beyond expectations. So we reached out to Gaga. She was all in. There were multiple ideas about what her performance was going to be. And then unfortunately, David Bowie passed about a month or so before the show, which changed everything. And it was one of those examples where sometimes through adversity, something great really emerged. Intel's objectives through this whole process was to change their perception among millennials and align with passion. Showcase Intel as an extraordinarily innovative brand enabling better experiences and being a leader in breakthrough technology. Intel Inside translates to great experiences outside, and to start and reframe the cultural conversation about what's possible with Intel. Again, I'll remind you what our objectives were, and there was a nice overlap between them. So we worked with Gaga, we worked with our production team, we worked with Intel, and we said, okay, well now we have the idea. What do we do with it? How do we take that globally? How do we change that conversation? So we started with cross-channel social. We created content. We amplified conversations. We used influencers. We talked about technology. We talked about the alignment between technology, music, entertainment. We created this broader story and started sharing it through various platforms. The telecast came, and then we showcased Gaga's performance. Now, this performance took months to create in terms of figuring out the technology. There were 6 different massive technology components, and pulling it all together was a monumental feat. Ultimately, this was a story about earned media. It was about the conversation that got started, and it was about reframing the conversation, and it was about how people started to think about Intel. And then it was all supported through paid. Ultimately, all of this was then amplified, not only through Intel channels, but through our channels and through the channels of our partner, CBS. We had a significant number of creative elements that were applied across all the media that you would expect it to be, keying on Lady Gaga as the key message.
I have the potential to imagine the unimaginable. the arsenal of the world's leading technology at my fingertips, I now have the ability to invent the uninventable. Rebranding into its future, Intel has enlisted House of Gaga to collaborate on a project that will showcase technology through creativity at the highest level. Our partnership will culminate in a performance that inspires to remind the world of the seed of innovation, the wizard behind the curtain, the mind behind the machine. Intel. Gaga.
So that was our tease. That's how we launched it. The CEO of Intel gave the keynote presentation at CES this year. Dropped this video. And the thing about working with a global icon like Gaga is that she's got fans that are massively dedicated and really excited when something new like this drops. So that started the cultural conversation. That started a significant amount of chatter, and it created a lot of dialogue about what this means, what's coming. Oh my God, is she going to be on the Grammys? What's it going to be? Intel's going to make this something that's never been seen before. And so from a cadence standpoint, that's how we started the earned media. And these are some of the articles that came out. These are some of the headlines. I won't read them all. But headlines started talking about unprecedented performance. Gaga has the ability to invent the uninventable. And this started to build and amplify as the Grammys approached. And my favorite was this. The Intel-Lady Gaga partnership could redefine entertainment and technology. From a social standpoint, we had a certain rhythm in the month of February, right? The Grammys was February 15th. So from the 1st to the 14th, working with Intel and their teams, and they have a number of different agencies, and through our team and our agency, we figured out how we could script across all channels, across all social media, sort of the same story but told in a different voice and in a different way, right? Because nowadays you can't post the same content on Snapchat and Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, etc. So there has to be a different or a slightly modified tone, slightly modified approach, ultimately laddering up to the same story. On Grammy Sunday, actually this year it was Grammy Monday, we're normally on a Sunday, this year was on a Monday, the performance came out and you can imagine the groundswell of enthusiasm that we created and the groundswell of anticipation. And then what we did immediately after the performance, we had never done this before. We had talking points in our media center. So we serve media from all over the world at the Grammys. And as soon as a performance is over, they want to talk about it, they want to talk to the artist comes back to the media center. So we armed all of the media to make sure that they got the story right and that they didn't make any assumptions and that they were as accurate as possible. We armed them all with talking points so they can talk about how Intel was important in powering this partnership and how it all came together between the Grammys and Intel. The performance itself, we preceded it with a custom 30, and as soon as it was over, we slotted a custom 90. So there was a huge moment, not only the moment itself, but there was a lead up to it, the moment itself, and then the trailer. Afterwards, we did a decent amount of research, and we asked unaided, what was your favorite Grammy performance? Universally, it was Gaga, 32%, followed by some other global superstars that you might recognize. So let's talk about what the results were. The results, these are two of my favorite lines. First was that this was a win for brands looking to become part of culture. And the second was that tech giant prominent in Lady Gaga's Bowie tribute. This changed the conversation. I'll show you one final video here that'll kind of encapsulate the program and let you know how we did.
Intel is famous for powering computers on the inside. But technology has moved beyond the box. Intel needed to reconnect with a younger entertainment-hungry audience by powering an innovative display on a global stage. So we created Next Generation Grammy Moments, a series of collaborative performances on the Grammy stage, powered by Intel technology. Lady Gaga's stage show was the culmination of almost a year's worth of work. We built a secret rehearsal stage where over 50 technologists worked day and night developing new technologies to make it all possible.
It's been fantastic because they built us this huge mock Staples Center stage.
We created an integrated campaign that pulled back the curtain to show how Intel powered the performance, including TV spots that aired before and after, a short documentary film.
I think what's so exciting about this collaboration is I get to shine a light on all of these scientists that are, artists in my opinion.
An extensive social media campaign.
So I've been working with these early prototypes for a ring that ultimately is going to end up on Lady Gaga's finger.
And visual art made from real-time data captured during her performance by a microcomputer in her ring. For the first time ever, we seamlessly integrated a brand onto music's biggest stage and created a global cultural moment.
So, a couple things about that performance. If any of you saw the Grammys and if any of you saw that performance, you'll notice there was no Intel billboarding, there was no branding on the stage itself. We feel very strongly that we don't want to distract from the music, and the Grammys itself stays very, very clean. So again, this was a story about earned media and shifting the conversation. And did it shift the conversation? I can tell you, 58 billion global impressions started to change the dialogue, not only in consumer trades and consumer press, because everyone expects Intel to get press on the tech side, but it started to change the dialogue and it started to change the conversation because there was media coverage, a significant amount of media coverage in consumer press as well. And it was all about not only the technology, but how technology made the performance better, how their technology can now impact the live experience, how it can actually change people's perceptions of what's possible. So that's really the end of my presentation. I just wanted to kind of take you through, connect the dots, deconstruct it a little bit, and then give you some of the results. So I appreciate the attention, and if anyone has any questions, happy to answer. Yes, sir.
I absolutely love this program, and I've been talking about it a lot at work. Really thought it was an example of not just integration, but blending the equities of brands. The question I have is, coming out of the performance, and no fault of the Grammys, no fault of Intel, but a lot of people reacted to Gaga's performance negatively. Some people thought it was a little Broadway or whatever because of the medley approach, in contrast to some of the other Bowie tributes that happened, or maybe the Gwen Stefani ad that was live that night too. Did that change? Like, did you read that reaction, and did that change some of your post strategy? Or is any talk valuable talk, or how did you blend in some of the haters?
Well, it's a good question, and I will tell you from a little bit of background on that. So Gaga worked with Nile Rodgers, who was, who wrote some of Bowie's biggest hits. He's also, he performed with Daft Punk, and he's gotten, he's had a big resurgence lately. And she performed. He thought it was important to honor Bowie by performing a number of songs. She couldn't figure out what songs she wanted to jettison. So on stage, she did 10 different songs. I think you're right. There's some, you're never going to please everybody. Some people didn't like it. And frankly, even some members of his family weren't sure that that was the right approach. But the reality is, when you look at the overwhelming amount of comments, it was far greater on the plus side, on the positive side, than on the negative side. And so, she felt, and her team felt, and Nile Rodgers felt that that was the best way that they could tribute him and they could show him respect. So we didn't change our strategy. I mean, we focused on the positives versus the negatives. Yes. Hi. Yeah, this was not a one-off. We work very passionately with, for, and on behalf of our partners, and we spend a lot of time listening, and we try to build a program that's going to over-deliver on all metrics. This is a multi-year relationship, and we are already starting to think about what the next moment is, whether that's on the Grammy telecast, which there probably will be, or leading up to the Grammy telecast at a different point throughout the year. But it really is all about, the underpinnings is about, how does Intel create the next generation of moments? Great. Well, thank you guys very much.